How I try to explain it to my clients or people interested is that there are three rings around that church, right? The middle ring is you're right by the church. You're in the heart of everything. You know, that you're going to hear all the noise coming from festivals. And anyone's familiar with Mexico, they have a festival and a saint and a, virgin, everything. There's celebration for everything.
Which is lovely, by the way.
It is lovely. I actually love it, but I like to say it because sometimes people get agitated online because they're like, why are the fireworks going off at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning? It's because it's Mexico, and that's part of being here and the culture.
Welcome back, everyone. If you watched part 1 of my interview with Michelle Wedderburn, you already know her incredible story. In part 2, we're going to discuss what it takes to build community in Mexico and what you really need to know if you want to move here. This is one episode you won't want to miss. So let's jump into episode 2 with our interview with Michelle.
Welcome to the Retirement in Mexico podcast, your guide to a life of sun, sand, and possibility. If you've ever dreamed of spending your golden years under the warm Mexican sun, surrounded by breathtaking beaches, rich culture, and an exciting community, you're in the right place. We're here to guide you every step of the way with expert insights, inspiring stories, and everything you need to know to make your move with confidence. The best chapter of your life is yours to create. Let's do this.
Clients I've had, they've never been to Mexico. They've done their research online. They've seen some of our videos, and for them, that's good enough. They connect with me. They come down and we hit the road. We look at multiple properties. I put in an offer, and the next thing you know, 60 days later, they move into their new home. So some people, they're ready to pull the plug or pull the trigger right then and there. And there are other people, that want to go back and forth a little bit more often and do their due diligence and study and really kind of digest everything and analyze. And then 6 months, a year and a half down the road, they move down here. So I've got a question. So it sounds like Casa Elm is like this temporary place they go to join this program, get educated. But what about people that are like ready to move down here and they're over a certain age, they're retired, So do you guys have any programs for people that are like baby boomers, retirees that are going to come down, but they don't necessarily have a place to go to? Can they stay with you for a long term?
Well, I would say long term until they find a place. I mean, Casa Elm is still a guest house. So what I do is we'll offer, for example, if someone wants to stay for a month, that's fine. 2 months, they just, I've had people who come for sabbatical. They just want to stay for a little while. That's an option. The space is mostly for those who are in transition, and we're here to help you with that transition until you find a home. So people say, oh, I love this neighborhood that you live in. I want to live close by. We'll help you get connected. I'll give my opinion. A lot of times my guests will show me where they're moving to. I'm friends with so many of the individuals that have done my programs, and I have so many keys to people's houses because, they live alone or they're traveling or whatever. Not saying, I'm a property manager or house sitting, but just in case something came up, I've had several of my clients that have asked, hey, can you go and check on my plants or whatever the case might be. The point of saying that is the space for me is healing, bringing together, creating synergies for those who are really serious about moving here. And we try to support those endeavors as much as we can. It's not a space where people can come necessarily in, because they don't want to live alone. I would definitely recommend, if you wanted to co-house with someone, there are other people in the community. We do have a community page that helps others connect, and there are a lot of community pages in San Miguel. If you were looking for that kind of arrangement, I would say a lot of the people that have done my programs, they end up staying in touch, traveling together, doing things together. Like those first 3 ladies I mentioned earlier, they still travel together, and it's been like over 3 years.
That's great.
They show me pictures. One actually bought a nice, beautiful place in Puerto Vallarta, And the other still lives in New York, and the other one has moved around a bit. She's here, she's in Oaxaca, she's now in Guadalajara. So, this just kind of gives you a range of what people are choosing to do and try on. So we are here to support. I call Casa Elm the soft landing experience because you're not necessarily going it alone. And we are here. I'm here. I mean, I live here. So, it's a little different than going to an Airbnb or a hotel because we're here to really kind of, I'd say exactly handhold, but we're here to help you along the way.
Now, you said earlier that Casa Elm is not near Centro. So for people that know the layout, San Miguel de Allende, so we can kind of step back for a second and let's tell our viewers and our listeners where San Miguel is located, where is El Centro, and where is Casa Elm, and what are the neighborhoods like in San Miguel for someone who's never been there?
So first of all, I always explain San Miguel de Allende as this, and it is called this. It's the heart of Mexico, considered the heart of Mexico, zone in Mexico. We are right in the center. If you look on a map, we're in the state of Guanajuato. There are 32 states in Mexico. So for those who don't know this, it's a huge country with so many options. I always say that what makes certain places convenient, it all depends on you, and also depends on your level of Spanish as well. Because there are beautiful cities where there may be not as many foreigners as there are in San Miguel. So we are in the center. We're about 4 hours north of Mexico City. San Miguel as a city goes is about an hour and a half away from the two major airports that you could fly into. One is in the city of Querétaro, the state of Querétaro. The other one is in León, which is in the state of Guanajuato, about an hour and a half away. San Miguel as a whole city is extremely compact. So if you were standing on the hill where they have the view, you can kind of almost just see the whole city in one space. It's like everything is kind of built around the church, right? Parroquia, the centro to the city, the heartbeat of our city. So there's not a lot of distance in any direction before you start hitting farmland. For example, I believe there are 3 or 4 major highways and roads into San Miguel de Allende, and you can be out of the city in 10 minutes in any direction and you just see farmland. So it's a very compact city. You can see the church from most places, whether you're on a rooftop, someone's house. The city does not have buildings that are more than 3 stories because it is UNESCO, and they're not allowed to build higher than 3 levels. So you can kind of see the city in general at any high points. Where the neighborhoods are all located around the church, right? So church is very symbolic. If you see it, it looks, they call it kind of like a wedding cake. And then the colors that they've used, it's a beautiful church. The jardín is in front of it. There's a pedestrian area around it. So what you see in the photos, that's central. You're going to see like the main roads like Aldamas that lead to the church. And all of those are very popular. Now, how I try to explain it to my clients or people interested is that there are 3 rings around that church, right? The middle ring is you're right by the church. You're in the heart of everything. That you're going to hear all the noise coming from festivals. And anyone's familiar with Mexico, they have a festival and a saint and a virgin for everything. There's a celebration for everything. There's a firework for everything. There's a firework.
Which is lovely, by the way.
It is lovely. I actually love it, but I like to say it because sometimes people get agitated online because they're like, why are the fireworks going off at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning? It's because it's Mexico, and that's a part of being here and the culture. So, you have to be willing to embrace all things. And then the second ring is the neighborhoods like San Antonio, which is very popular for foreigners. There's Guadalajara, that's a neighborhood that's close to San Antonio. You also have Guadalupe, which is a bit artsy. So it reminds me a bit of like a Soho, very small version of a Soho, which is in New York. It's very artistic, the warehouse district. There are not warehouse per se, but there's a lot of murals and things on walls in that neighborhood. And then the outer ring to that would be places like La Lejona 1, some neighborhoods like Las Brisas. You're still not far away from Central, but if you have great mobility, you can walk. You can walk to Central. A lot of people will do that. They may want a little bit more house and pay a little less. So those are the neighborhoods that they may move to. There's like Olympio, things like this. And then you have my neighborhood, which is going to be in the area of the Malinquin, La Lejona 2. And that's where they have a lot of townhouses and developments. I live in Los Frailes, and Los Frailes is its own thing. So what I think happened back in the day, like maybe 3 decades ago, is a lot of owners of land just sold an entire block of land. So let's call it a hectare. That's kind of average here. Selling about a hectare of land, and people built, humongous homes on those properties, or they split it in 2 or 4 parts and built multiple homes on those properties. So sometimes you'll see a wall around a home that takes up an entire block. And I think that back in those days that the land was less expensive, there was a lot more room, Central was not as developed, those individuals didn't want to live in the center, they wanted to be outside for whatever the reasons are. So to me, these are the 3 rings that go around the city. The 4th ring, you're in farmland again, and the lake. So that's how I would describe it. It's a very compact city, but not difficult to get in and out.
So from you call the 3rd ring, if somebody were to hop in a car and drive to El Centro, how many minutes are we talking?
10 to 12.
Well, that's nothing.
No, it's not.
Oh, that's nothing. So everything's really close. Yeah,
it's very compact. I mean, really, you can't complain. A lot of people don't have cars because you really don't need a car. I think it's more of a hassle to have a car, especially if you live in Central, because there's really nowhere to park. We're talking cobblestone streets and very narrow places. So that's the attraction to Central and why people live there, because they just want to step outside their door and be in the heart of everything.
Well, we have cobblestone streets here in Vallarta, and Centro is the same. Well, how would you describe the energy and the culture of San Miguel, and why do you feel like a lot of Americans are drawn to it?
I would say, honestly, for me, and I say this about the country as a whole, but for sure, San Miguel is the people here are very community-based. I feel that the locals rub off on us. We're not used to be treated well, typically coming from the north. And so I think when we arrive in San Miguel, I always say it's like Smurfville. It's just a very happy place in general. Now, don't get me wrong, there are always going to be vicious troll type people online, unfortunately, but I always found it super interesting how we could go out almost to anywhere and someone starts speaking to you for no reason. I love the traditions of Mexico, and I feel that the Mexicans have poured more into us when we least expected it. So, for example, the synergy that happens when you're eating a meal and they walk by and they tell you to enjoy, it's just something that you kind of feel recognized. You feel human. You're not just a transaction. And so San Miguel, for me, is just a very happy, good energy space and place. And I think that people are attracted to that. The community here is very supportive. I always say I feel that this is the epitome of the village experience. There are people willing to help you, to jump in, give advice, to help you get from point A to B. And I do believe it starts with the Mexican people, the culture of the land. I know in cities it's different, but it really is special here.
I mean, something you said earlier, Michelle, it's transactional, right? If I'm going to generalize the culture, I would say the culture is not so much transactional, but more transformational. And they're a lot more warm and inviting. Yeah, there are people everywhere in the world. Some are nicer than others, but just as an overall, I find the culture here a lot more warm and inviting and calm, and just more polite. Can we say that word?
Yeah, absolutely. They are.
I'm generalizing. When you go to the big cities, go to the big cities like Mexico City, Guadalajara, there's a bit more stress because I think big cities it's a more stressful environment. Like I'm from LA, but in general, I think I've been to San Miguel and Puerto Vallarta. People say this all the time. The Mexican people are just so warm and inviting, and I think that's true. And that it's being very human and just kind of looking out for each other and being polite. I mean, I've had strangers. I remember when I drove my car from LA back in 2006, my old car. I was driving through Culiacan, Culiacan, and I couldn't find the hotel. I got to the city like at 11 o'clock at night. I couldn't find my way around. And I asked the cop, hey, do you know, I forgot the name of the hotel. He goes, yeah, follow me. And the policeman just gave me a private escort. I just followed the policeman all the way to the hotel. That would never happen to me in Los Angeles.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
So
Normally
it's quite different.
else.
So question for you also, if a lot of expats are moving to Mexico for a number of reasons, cost of living, like in your case, putting their kids in a better environment. They want for them to grow up in a more like an international school, be bilingual, learn different cultures. But we're also getting a lot of people now moving because of the political climate back in the States and Canada. Where do you find some of these expats that are moving down to San Miguel now? Are there particular neighborhoods they're gravitating more towards? Are you finding a lot more younger people, middle age, retirees? What's the pool like now with expats coming down?
That's a great question. I think the demographic has broadened a lot, not just with age, but also race. I moved to San Miguel, there weren't a lot of brown and black people from the north that were living here. And I didn't come here specifically looking for that. I came because of the things I stated earlier. But I've noticed that there are a lot of folks coming down from all over, definitely coming from mostly the United States, but the age range is wide, much wider. There are a lot more younger people in San Miguel than in Mexico City has like a wider range, but here in San Miguel, it was leaning a lot more towards, retiree demographic. And in these past, I would say 2.5 years, especially with my program. But in general, I see a lot of new faces, a lot of different situations. And I think, again, it's that people are overwhelmed where they are. They're taking their money. They're realizing that they can live a little better somewhere else, whether they're retired or they're working online or they want to try, whatever the reasons are. I find that they're coming from the north, mostly from the U.S., some from Canada, and they are trying it out. They're looking at different neighborhoods. I would say a lot of people tend to lean towards San Antonio. And I would say they were leaning towards San Antonio before because there was a lot of info online about it. People are starting to branch out more because, as I said earlier, the city is really not that big. So, and you don't have to buy a car if you decided to move into the second ring or the third ring. I don't think you really need a car. You just need maybe a good driver if you like walking. It all just depends. So I find that a lot of folks are actually moving into Los Frailes. Again, it depends on kind of home are they looking for. I find a lot of families move to Los Frailes. A lot of families move to La Lejona too, because there are a lot of developments with townhouses and communities that have things for their kids, and they feel safer because they're with security, and they have pools and all the things that people might want for their kids. Their kids can run around outside and they don't have to breathe down their necks. That was my initial experience when I moved here. And so I think the reasons are based on what does that person want and see for themselves. I think as well, people are wanting to move to Central because they want to try that experience on maybe a year. And after a year, sometimes they move because it's too much. They say, okay, I got it out of my system. I want to be somewhere where it's a little bit quieter. So there's a nice variety. For example, San Antonio has so many cool restaurants and bakeries and little shops and things like this that you can just walk outside, bring your laptop and, hang out and spend that kind of time. What I do want to emphasize is that although San Miguel seems like it's more expat foreigner based, it's still very Mexican based as well. And that's the thing I love about it. It's still very small city with a big city attitude. But on the weekends, there are a lot of Mexicans that come here, nationals that come here for holiday vacation. They have, they're probably more affluent. So our population of full-time foreigners is about 12, maybe 15,000 compared to the population of San Miguel as a whole, which is 180,000 or so. So that just kind of gives you idea of the percentage, the percentages.
Michelle, there are a lot of people retiring, right? Baby boomers, they're in their mid-late 60s. Some of them are alone. Their spouse has passed away, or they're just single for one reason or another. And that's kind of challenging at a certain age. Do you do you have a support system? Do you have a place for them to go to? I can see people coming down, doing their research for like a week and joining your program. But there are some people they want to make this move, but they're mid-60s and up, and they don't speak the language, and they're a little nervous. They're scared. So is there something for them to help them make this transition to San Miguel?
Absolutely. So with the programs I already offer, we recently launched Hacienda Elm, and that is geared specifically towards people that are at that point in their life where, maybe say they have regrets. But I speak to a lot of folks who are older and they're like, man, I wish I had done this sooner. I wish I had had the opportunity. And I understand that because I think we all have regrets about things. But the point is it's not too late. And Hacienda Elm was created to support people who want to still live independently, but not necessarily alone. And I call it aging in community. So the space is designated for this demographic because there are already a lot of individuals who live here that I see aging, and this is where they are. It's not easy for them to go back to the north or to go back to wherever they may move from 10, 20 years ago. And then there are those who want to move now at an older age. So Hacienda was created to support that lifestyle where you can live abroad. We can assist you with how you get here, but you also are supported. It's a space where there's someone available 24/7. So let's say you have an emergency, you need a doctor, fell, or something like this, or you're someone who's moving a little slower, or I just want to be somewhere where everything's kind of, supported in terms of my living and my lifestyle. We have 6 suites, so it is kind of like a boutique living, but our intention is to honestly, and I mean this with my heart, is to love on the people that are there, because I really think that that's a population that gets forgotten. As you said, the spouse may pass away, or maybe you're the caregiver and you can't really give that person the same thing, and that person ends up in an institution. This is a space that's an alternative to that. We will have individuals there to care for our residents, and that is our intention, is to make sure that there's quality of life, there's things for them to do. For example, on site, we have a swimming pool. We will have activities such as yoga. There's a nature trail for individuals to walk around if they want to get some fitness and wellness. There's a theater, a small theater there as well. We're going to have someone who's going to prepare meals for our residents based on their nutrition and things like that. And we're going to have weekly activities and quarterly activities, transportation, all the things to just kind of help you as you age. This was inspired by my dad, who has now since passed away, by me seeing where my mom lives and feeling just kind of a sense of loneliness for that scenario, and also for myself in the future. A bit self-serving, but I also don't want to be in a position where I didn't think about it in advance. And I think that...
So is this like assisted living?
I'm not calling it assisted living, because I know that people that are aged, they don't want to feel that they can't do anything. It takes away the dignity if it seems like, I'm just stuck. This is for people who are still active, they still want to move around, but we're going to assist by providing a space where you can be in community. I think that that's my biggest emphasis, is that you're not living alone, but we're also going to be there. So for example, let's say you were living there for 5 years and now you're at a space where you need support, you need a little assistance on a physical basis. We're willing to provide that support. So that's the intention, is for you to be able to be somewhere, age in a community where people know if you're down, you need assistance, you need to talk. We're going to have groups of things that we'll do together. Book club, there's going to be places for gardening. There's going to be a variety of options. So that is the intention, is that I want to live abroad, or I'm already here and I need help. I don't want to be on my own for the next 5 years of my life as I'm aging. So there are places that offer a straight, full assisted living for those who are really at a space where maybe they have dementia and Alzheimer's. We're not set up for that, but for that in between, now and later, that's where we are.
Okay, well, that's wonderful. And are Hacienda Elm and Casa Elm in the same neighborhood?
No. So we're not that far from each other. I would say it's about a 15-minute ride, and we're both fairly close to Central, but in different directions. So we are in a neighborhood that's called Los Lopez, and the way the property is set up, it's a big property. It's about a hectare, and the hacienda is right in the center. Everything's on one level, and it's approximately 10 minutes to Central as well by car. And Los Reyes, again, we're on another road that leads to Celaya, and we are just a bit outside of the city, as I said earlier, and that's another 10 minutes to Central. It's just different, main roads. Yeah.
Okay. So, Michelle, as you wrap this up, if there's someone sitting on the fence from the States, Canada, most of our clients come from the States and Canada, and of course we get a few from Europe and other parts of the world, but for the most part, our counterparts north of the border that are thinking of moving to Mexico, they're sitting on the fence, they're scared, they're nervous, they've got doubt. What's that one advice you can give them to help them overcome this fear and make that move?
One advice, honestly, is I would do research. I would for sure tap in. A lot of times people making this move, you're kind of like the oddball in your circle because not everyone in your circle is thinking about leaving. So sometimes you may feel like the oddball or the weirdo or the strange person, and that's, to me, is not the case. It's just this is something you want to do. So research, in my opinion, is where we start to have more confidence when you can find things online. For example, we talked earlier about tapping into YouTube, tapping into channels, tapping into Facebook pages where there's a group or groups in the city of interest. That's where you're going to start to see all the weirdos and the people that you think are different and strange when we're not, right? We just pursued a dream. We pursued something that felt good to us or very interesting to us, and moving outside of the fair and moving outside of the propaganda and getting your ticket and giving a try, finding places that provide the support where you can go and maybe not be alone. Make those connections online before you go to that place, and also know yourself. As I said before, know who you are, know what your tolerance level is. For example, I love traveling, so I know that I can go to a place and take it on. I'm not afraid to rent a car and drive around in a country. Done it many a times. I'm not afraid to move around in Mexico in my car. Done it, and I've had to learn to get rid of those things. But it was a baby step, but it was still a step. So if you don't make the move, if you're just sitting on the fence, you're going to sit on the fence forever. So It's either you do it, jump in, give it a try, connect with things that make you feel secure in your next step. And sometimes it's a big one to get on the plane and go somewhere where you don't know anyone. Connect with individuals like what I offer and do, because there are plenty of people like myself, Taniel, and if you start looking it up, you'll find and you'll connect with them. That's where it brings so much. That research brings you so much clarity, and that's what I suggest, is that you start there. If you're adventurous and you say, I can backpack and I know I'm going to do this, then...
Yeah, no, that's great advice. And, I think one of the first things people need to do is just commit to the fact that you want your life to change and you're looking for that change. Once you make that decision, I want a better life. I don't want to live like this anymore. And then you could start investigating, doing the research. But if you don't commit to yourself and your future, no one's going to do it for you, right? And it's interesting. You said, people look at you kind of weird, like you're a freak or something. It's okay to live a life other people don't understand, because it's not their life. It's yours. And deep down, if you're at peace or at harmony, you're in alignment or you're not. And as soon as you make that decision, I want a better life, then the universe will provide. And that's, like you said, YouTube, Facebook groups. You can start doing the research and connecting with professionals. And I think finding success stories of people that have actually made that move, because other people have done this before you. So you're not going to reinvent any wheel. Like, communicate with the professionals like yourself and others, real estate attorneys or real estate agents, immigration specialists. Reach out to them, gather factual information, block out the propaganda. And then once you have all that information at your fingertips, you can make a sound decision whether you're going to do it or not, right?
Absolutely.
And it's
so key.
Yeah, and it's not as complicated as people think it is, but once everything is circling on your head, and most of them are just not valid, they're opinions of people that have never really taken the time to plan for their future. And so are you crazy doing this? Are you crazy doing that?
Right.
No, but I want a better life and I want to perform my own due diligence. So, and there are and for people to know that you are not alone in this. There are a lot of people out there that will care for you, even a stranger that is willing to help you make this move, or at least provide you information so you can decide if this is the right path for you, right?
Absolutely. And I think that the more people lean in, as you said, the universe does start providing. I am a believer in this in so many ways. I mean, as I mentioned, I didn't move here anticipating that I was going to have even this space for myself and my kid, and others. And it's just been such a blessing. And I feel that I've walked the most in my purpose here in this than I ever have in my life.
And your kid at 13 is teaching Spanish now.
Yes, he's teaching Spanish. He has a client that signed up recently for 4 weeks. And it's just beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. And he's kind of shy. And I said, just as with anything, we have to start somewhere. And as you said,
I may want to interview him down the road.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
Michelle, thank you so much for joining us. So if somebody wants to reach out to you, learn more about what you do, connect, what's the best way for them to contact you?
A couple ways. I would say if you want to learn more about what we do and provide, please go to Casa Elm. That's CasaElm.com. This is my guest house space. You can also reach out to me if you want to write a message. There's a contact form online or at info@CasaElm.com. And if you want to know more about Hacienda Elm, same. You can go to the website and you can find all the information about our services, what we provide. You can see the space. And I also have a YouTube channel, so you can find that as well under either my name, Michelle Wedderburn, or under Casa Elm. And then just do a Google search. You can get connected with me there if you don't remember this aspect of the interview. But you can find me online, and I like to get back to people pretty quickly in terms of their questions and things like that, who have a lot of questions about the programs that we offer. So we're very responsive. So those are the places that can easily reach me.
Great. And we're going to put all that contact information in the description of the podcast so people can click and get a hold of you. Michelle, thank you so very much. And actually, you know what? Down the road, I want to do another follow-up interview, and I would love to have your son on there for a few minutes and
Awesome.
kind of get his story from, he was 6 years old, I think, when you guys moved there.
Yes.
6. So now he's 13, teaching Spanish. He's a little entrepreneur. So congratulations, Michelle. Again, thank you so much. And I'll see you real soon. Take care.
Your retirement in Mexico starts right here, and we're excited to be part of your journey. Every episode, we bring you the magic of Mexico, insider tips, and expert advice to help you take that next big step with confidence. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. It helps others like you discover the endless possibilities waiting south of the border. Got a topic you'd like for us to cover? We'd love to hear from you. Send your suggestions to info@tanielchemsing.com. And remember, a life well lived isn't left to chance. It's created with intention. See you next time.